What is the diasporan experience like?
It was a shock.
Identity is at the core of us. We cannot talk about parenting without understanding the backdrop that underpin that parenting.
We're getting more educated and losing our own essence.
If we cannot be proud of who we are, that leads to some form of dislocation with our own selves. Hello. Welcome to another episode of our exciting podcast where we explore the experiences of parenting in the in-between. Mothers, fathers who cross the divide into other cultures to bring up children in an environment that is new and very different from the homelands they come from. Today, we are going to be exploring some of the themes that we've earlier on discussed in this podcast from the point of view of two mothers who have been part of this diasporan experience. There's a lot for us to talk about. But first, before I go into any of what we have to discuss today, let me invite our guests today to introduce themselves and to tell us a little bit more about their experience here in diaspora. So first of all, hello, Laide, Pastor Laide, and hello, Aisha, you're welcome to this episode of Diasporan Experiences. Can I please first ask you to introduce yourself and how you came to be in the diaspora?
Okay. Thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to be here this evening. It's so excited to be here and talk about these issues. My name is Laide Ajayi. I'm a pastor. I pastor with my husband. We've pastored for about 15 years now. We have 3 children. I love children's ministry. I started off in children's ministry. I've been in children's ministry for about forever, ever since I started ministering in church, and it has made me develop a passion for children, and so that is kind of what has made me develop a need, see some of the needs that are out there. And I also am passionate about women too, women finding their voice, coming into their own, and maximizing their gifts and talents as well. I am a geologist by profession. I worked in corporate for about a few years, and then we segued into entrepreneurship, and currently now that's what we're doing now.
Thank you so much. As you can see, we're in for a powerhouse discussion, but that's just one half of the duo. Now let's move on to Aisha to also tell us a little bit about herself.
Thank you very much again for having me. What a pleasure to be here. So my name is Asa Adenusi. I've been in the U.S. for 10 years, actually. I have 3 kids, 2 daughters. One is about to turn 25, and then I have one that's about to turn 21, and then I have my son that's about to turn 18. And so I came in from Nigeria looking for the opportunity to have my kids, experience a better education and just the exposure of coming into the Western world, so to speak, and it has been a journey, ups and downs, learnings and all whatnot. And we're going strong as a family, but definitely we have the scars, that come with being here. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. You're very welcome, Asa. And again, another powerful half of the duo. So we're in for a thrilling time exploring some of the issues that we've always talked about on this podcast. I don't know, your kids were born here, so they wouldn't have that experience of navigating back home and here.
Well, yeah, they didn't have the experience of navigating back home because they were born here, but I want to say they did still have a few shared experiences like her kids because, for my daughter, going through, I think sports was an outlet. I think our kids, when they get into sports, it kind of gives them a little bit of soft landing. And she started sports early. She started with FFPS. It's where soccer, it was like a little soccer league. They just have them, they call it fun something soccer. My husband used to hate it because it's like they're not competing, but they were just like kicking the ball around. But it was like getting them used to, he was always about who's winning, and I was like, nobody's winning. They're all winners. We all win. So that was how she started. And
again, that is the dislocation as well. I'm sure for a proper Nigerian, what is this thing about play for fun?
Yeah, because eventually she moved on to club soccer, and the parents loved my husband because he would always be the one. He'll be like, he'll be like cheering on, and so they would, anytime he wasn't at the games, like, where's your husband? We love his energy because he was always so competitive. You think he was like their coach. But going back to what I was saying, so starting with soccer. We found out that she was good, so we got her into like club soccer. So I think that helped her integrate better because team sports. There's something about sports that gives you, they get into a team and things like that. But she still faced let me say discrimination because at a point in time, one of their coaches, they had a coach from England, unfortunately. Let me say unfortunately because because the coaches she had initially, they were good, and everything. But when this guy came, he practically destroyed that team. He destroyed the self-esteem of that team, and she lost confidence in herself. And I think she was like this was like 7th or 8th grade, and I had to tell her, I was like, hey, little girl, I had to sit her down and I said, okay, this is a reality check. I'm like, sorry, but this is the way life is. I said, even we as parents, we go through that kind, and it was just like little subtle, subtle like hints, and she started losing confidence in herself, and even some of the other kids, because she was the only black girl on her team, but there were other nationalities. There was Vietnamese, there was Hispanic and stuff, so it was like kind of a mix. Even some, it was a good mix of cultures, so, and it was a really good team. But when he came, it was just like, and they started losing.
Things changed.
The dynamics changed. So we even had to write. We had to write and say, hey, my husband was even motivated enough to write the coach and say, hey, before you came, this team was together, and thankfully they changed him, but I had to sit her down. I said, this is a reality. This is what happens. Unfortunately, it's sad, but you have to work twice as hard. Yeah. You have to work twice as hard before, and then when she got into high school, because of club sports, it was kind of a lot. So she faced high school, and she became like she became one of their best players. She won awards as well, and I think even eventually after she graduated, her team, whenever they would hear she was back from school, they would want her to come and speak to the girls, So she kind of grew into her own. But on the flip side, like my son now, he's 14. We've tried to get him into sports, but he experienced the bullying. Because he went to a charter school. He first started off with a charter school. So after the charter school, I was like, okay, I want him to have the same experience, because the charter school, they are limited in terms of sports activities. So I wanted him to have a more rounded experience. So I said, okay, go back into the public school system. And that was middle school, 6th grade, he got bullied. It was like, and it was, that pushing and shoving and stuff. And then even things on the bus happened on the bus in 7th grade and stuff. So it was just like, okay, this is a child that grew up here, so what happened? And even going back to when he was in elementary school, I remember when he was like, because before there was a reason why he went to the charter school too, because we had an incident that happened.
So I think what I would like to maybe explore with you is how the children perceive the reasons for this bullying. Is it because they were different? And what are perhaps some of the stories, if you can't share, that the kids will tell you about the experience they were having? Because why I say this is, we find that a lot of diasporan children navigate the space and find out how to belong through sports, through music, through ways in which they can show their brilliance without having to go through a mediation process, if you know what I mean. Because if you run and you're fastest, you're fastest.
Yeah.
There's not much you can do about it. And I still remember when my son, I think he was 7, one of the things I told him, because I think he was talking about, they won't let him play the football. And I said, well, you take your football. He said, nobody will play with me. I said, well, start playing all by yourself. And then one child will join you, and then another child, and then that happened. And he became quite a good sports person while he was at school. But we find that sports, music, the arts become ways in which...
an outlet. Yeah.
An outlet for them to express themselves and for them to be seen for who they are. And it's almost as if it's making up. Yeah. For something that we haven't understood. Because I wouldn't say I understand it. Yeah. But it's quite interesting that we all have, all 3 of us here have the same experience around how sports, that it's sort of that entry for them into that space. So I was just wondering, and again, I want to bring it back to you as mothers, because this is about you and how you experience that journey, as a mother navigating, trying to support your children through this arena. In terms of your own identity and the certainty that you felt about yourself, how was that for you?
Okay, so very interesting, because like you said, I went to Imperial at this time. I have a master's degree, I'm a certified accountant, all of that good stuff. I put my career on hold because I said, let me put 3 years into my kids and then go back. So I really didn't take much thought into how I was going to manage myself. But then when the reality started coming, look, you've got to do something here. You've got to support, the bills keep coming, everything has to be paid. Yep. And I thought I'll just flip up my certificate and I'll get a job. No, it didn't work like that. And that in me started to break my self-confidence, right? And I retrospectively, and I think I started to maybe take it out on the kids, yell a little bit more, and remember that we have a different way of bringing up our kids disciplinary-wise, and you can't, retrospectively again, you can't do that. You have to relearn what it takes to be an African parent. Yeah.
In diaspora. Yeah.
In diaspora. Yeah. So that's a different topic, right?
We're getting there for the nice segue.
Yeah. So, but my kids, they were okay. It wasn't like I'm not fully Nigerian, so obviously they had a little bit of everything. So food wasn't a problem, and they were well traveled as well, so they could. That was fine, They spoke very good English. They didn't have an accent. They didn't have all of that to deal with. My son was actually getting in trouble because he was being made to do things that were way too elementary for him. And so obviously when a young boy has finished his work, he's going to roll up paper and start to throw. Yep. Because are you guys still trying to add 1 + 1? That is like, I finished that before the teacher finished speaking. Yeah. And so I realized that he was getting in trouble because he wasn't being challenged in school. Yep. So I started to challenge him a little bit more. But then that pushed him ahead again and created more trouble. So I had to be like, okay, African mother, cool down. All right? So my kids ended up, doing extremely well in school because that is the expectation, So sports, we had it. Then music, we did that. But I was losing myself little by little while bringing up the kids, and then breaking point happened.
Losing yourself little by little. Yeah. And I know that perhaps in some ways that is the story of motherhood, whether we are in the diaspora or not, because motherhood is about sacrifice and sometimes about giving more of yourself. But I think what we're saying here is that the added layer of navigating this uncertainty, this shifting sand, creates even more challenges for a diasporan parent.
Yes,
and like you said, I mean, you have a degree from Imperial College, one of the top college universities in the world. So you would expect, well, if I dust up that degree or certificate, I should be able to get a job, and you don't. And that must knock your self-confidence a little bit and make you wonder, about the space that you're in. But you also touched on a few other themes here around discipline, around food. You talked about food earlier. And to my mind, those are some of the really critical things around culture, identity, and parenting, how we do things, And did you find that the way you did things was supported by the wider community, by the wider village? How was your experience there? And I'll come first to Pastor Laide on that.
Okay. Yeah, that's a very interesting perspective, because I want to say that and you're talking about the immigrant community or the
the environment. So the schools,
environment. Okay, the schools.
Teachers.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So if you say this is how I'm disciplined, or this is how I communicate, this is what I expect. You talked about expectations. These are my expectations. How was that? Because you had a different community.
Yes.
Back home, and in that community, it would have hopefully been a little bit more homogeneous. How did you find it here?
Yeah, it was different. It was different because there were different expectations, obviously, in terms of because especially like for a typical example that comes to mind is like the typical holidays that are celebrated. The one I had a pet peeve with was Halloween. And I made it known to my children that we do not celebrate Halloween. So they always knew that. And then even going down to Christmas too, even Christmas, I was like, yeah, Santa's nice. I grew up loving the fairy tales, but it's not real. So and for a typical American, it's like, oh my God, you're breaking, you're not.
Weird mom.
Yes, it's like their sense of wonder, I'm like, no, I lay it down the way it is, So my children knew that. So and I remember even at work, sometimes, because usually like, especially around holiday, oh, what did you dress up your child as? I'm like, we don't celebrate it. And they were like, oh, so they would say, oh, what's that holiday you guys don't celebrate? Is it Christmas? I was like, no, it's Halloween. We don't celebrate it. It has spiritual implications, So those are some of the nuances, and those are some of the things that I inculcated into them, and they gradually got to know, and they made it known at school that they cannot participate. They would not participate in things like that. So, and then, I always made sure that they had a sense of culture, that they knew where they're from. Yes, you were born here, but I would always tell them that you're originally from Nigeria. Like, for example, my son, he will come, oh, we're learning Spanish. I'm like, you've not learned your own native tongue. So you better pay attention to your own native tongue. You can learn Spanish, it's a good skill, but you also have to learn your own native tongue. So I give them that sense of, that identity that you have, yes, you're here, you're an American citizen, you were born here. I think that's a great advantage, but understand that where you came from also has value. Also has value, it has merits, and it's something you should be proud of. So, and I remember...
Why did you think that was important? Why were you trying to instill that in your children?
Because I think even because of my experience growing up, because, I said I was born here, and I still, there's some memories that get imprinted in your brain as children. And I still remember, we were going through a departmental store with my mom, and I think we were on our way coming back. And I still could see it vividly. The sense of excitement I had that we're going to Nigeria, and I'm grateful for the fact that I experienced, yes, the first part of my life here, but also be able to experience Nigeria, the Nigerian culture, the African community, get to know it, get to know the food, get to enjoy the culture, the dressing and everything. And then even coming back here with that sense. So it kind of balances you. So because a lot of children, like especially like children like your children that they grew up in Nigeria, when they come here, they tend to think that, oh, here's better. And then they tend to devalue where we come from. So, but I came with a sense of that, hey, I have the best of both worlds, you know, and I wanted to pass that across to them that, yes, you were born here, but understand that there's so much back home too. And it was when the first time we took them all back home, that's when my daughter appreciated it, my oldest daughter, because then I used to threaten her, sorry, African mom, I used to threaten her whenever she's back, I'm sending you back to Nigeria. You're going to go to boarding school. So she had some trepidation about, oh, Nigeria, you know, because I was like, you're going to boarding school, you know, you're going to be disciplined and everything. So, but when we went, the first time we went, she was like, all right. And the funniest thing was that she didn't like Lagos. She didn't like Ibadan. We even went to the north where I grew up. She loved Akure, which is my husband's hometown. That was where she loved. And it was because of the family. Because they had a big extended family. They embraced her. He had a lot of brothers, and all, you know, so she loved it. So
she experienced
it. So when she came back, and thankfully, like about 3 years ago when my mom passed, also we were privileged. I'm grateful that she got to go with us. She was the only one who went with us. The other two we didn't take her. So she also experienced the burial, you know, the ceremonial, you know, all that, you know, and it was beautiful. So it gave her a sense of, hey, you know, I'm born here, but I have a sense of pride of where I come from. I get connection to your roots. So I try. That's why I push that narrative that, hey, you can be proud of where you come from, despite the narrative you're being told. Yes, every society has the bad part of it. There are poor people here in the United States. There are destitutes. There are villages who are underdeveloped, even in the United States. Because sometimes I pass through some place, I'm like, is this the United States? You know, so it's just so that they get a fair balance, because a lot of kids come here and they try to say, oh, this is better. No, and they discard, throw the baby out with bath. No, let's balance it and appreciate the food, appreciate the culture, appreciate the music, appreciate the dressing. Yeah. So now my oldest, she doesn't like dressing in our attire, but my second born, she loves everything Nigerian. My father-in-law, blessed memory, used to call her my African girl, because he loved the fact that she would sing the songs, she would dress the part, she would proudly even attempt to speak the language. And then even at school, when the teachers will, because her name is Oluwa Bukola, so Bukola for short, then there's Buki for short, she will correct them. She's like, don't call me Buki, it's Bukola. Yeah. And I don't know where she got that from. She'll say, don't call me, they will say, because Buki is easier. She's like, no, don't call me Buki, call me Bukola. Yeah. She will correct them.
So even though she was born here, you were getting her to see that our other identity, that identity of being a Nigerian was also important. Yes. And you were teaching her to embrace all of herself. Yes. So to embrace the American part of who she was, but also to embrace the Nigerian part of who she was, and navigate and sort of fuse that into something that made her a more whole person. Exactly. Very interesting. Yeah. So Asa, what was your experience? How have you navigated this culture, identity, you know, process as you migrated here to the UK?
You know, so I'm actually very proud of my kids as well, that they refuse to change their names. They all have English middle names, but they refused, and they made it a point of duty to correct and even learned how to phonetically pronounce and teach people, you know, the simple way to pronounce their names. So I was actually very proud. They stuck to their guns, you know.
But how did you get them to do that? Because
I didn't. I was actually, saying, you know, you can use your middle name, right? I was giving them an out.
So you were the one.
I was trying to give them an out.
Interesting.
But they said, no, why should we do that?
Wow. So in a sense, amazing. You were the one who was prepared to sort of tamp down on the identity and the culture. And they were saying no. And again, it would be really interesting to understand, you know, what influences their thinking in this way. You know, how have they got to the place where they believe and realize that, no, my identity from where I come from matters, and it should be valued.
Yes.
Because names, for instance, is really, really
Yeah, it's
important.
very important.
And I know that one of the things that people do in the diaspora is they quickly leave their name, which has lots of rich meaning
And significance.
and take on, a name that appears to be easier to pronounce, to call, but then that's part of your identity, isn't it? Your name is your identity. Your language is your identity. Your food is your identity. Your dressing is your identity. And to some extent, I think what I hear you saying is your children are saying, no, you're not going to take all of that away from me. I'm going to keep it so that I can be whole. Because oftentimes we find that when we take these things away, we're taking away bits and pieces of the person. And then we wonder why we find hollowness. And we wonder why they're searching, and they're searching in all the wrong places. And sometimes then you find subcultures and the rest develop because they're trying to find a new identity where they feel a sense of belonging. So we've had a very interesting conversation. I could go on talking to both of you ladies. So it's been very interesting listening to both of you talk about your experiences of navigating parenting in this in-between world. And I thank you very much
Thank you for having us.
being open and sharing. But just before we go, both of you have talked about a journey, and your kids have all kind of grown up now, in their 20s. Do you want to maybe very briefly talk about what it has taken, for you, the toll to go through this experience? And just maybe one thing you may want to tell a young mother or a young parent who's just starting on this journey. Just very, very briefly.
Okay. I would want to encourage a young mother that it's going to be okay. If you do the work, you give your children the right information, it is going to be okay, because that was what my mom told me. Because there were times when I was so scared that I had not prepared, especially my oldest. She's graduating and next month, but to the glory of God.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
Congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. And I remember when she was about to go to college, I was petrified. I thought I had not prepared her enough. I was like, is she going to be able to cope? And surprisingly, she adjusted so well. Which validated even the ups and downs, even the mistakes I made, because I believe that she was my guinea pig, because I made a lot of mistakes. She being the firstborn, there are a lot of things I didn't do, because, like, for example, were like field trips. I never had time to go on field trips with all these school trips and things like that. But I realized that at the end of the day, like you rightly said before, our children, sometimes they understand where we come from. And when they have a true understanding of that, they cut you some slack. And for her, she has become a woman, a young woman that I admire a lot. She has become a leader.
Wow.
She's become a voice.
Wow.
She has found her own voice, which gives me hope. For a lot of children that go through, because a lot of the issues are that a lot of the children, like you said, they lose a sense of themselves. Sometimes they have mental issues. They go through ups and downs. She went through a time where she had a depressive issue. We walked through that as a family, but it made us better parents. It made us better as a family, because we were able to navigate that honestly, and even with the community, because we were able to build a community also here, because that's another important thing, that a lot of families that come, sometimes they want to keep themselves out of the Nigerian community or the African community that they come from, because they want to say, we want to now be, because there's too much drama. But yes, there's drama, but there's value in, because it's still the village to raise. And I thank God that during that period, that it was a very tough period for us, but our community rose to help. So she had a lot of trusted voices, like surrogate mothers who she was able to talk to. She couldn't talk to me. She was able to talk to them. And we're able to come out of that thankfully unscathed, because now she's such a joy to look at, and we're so proud of her. So I just want to encourage parents that, just do the right thing. Let's not throw away our culture. Let's embrace the good parts of our culture. Let's embrace the community. Even as we're here in the diaspora, let's lean on each other, because we can learn from each other. Iron sharpeneth iron, as the Bible would say. And there are shared experiences. She might be going through something. I might not know what it is, and that's one thing I love. I love learning from other people's experiences. I'm open to that. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. And now, Asa.
So this was really a great pleasure. Looking back, and we're still working through our issues. I really wish I had more people to lean on. And actually, I remember when I came to order food once, and you actually said, "Oh, your daughter was struggling," and I wondered that why would you be so open? Mm-hmm. Yeah. But she didn't know that I was going through the exact same thing. And I was like, wow, there is actually hope here, The family had a lot of pushback on whether we should do therapy or not, but I think that is such an invaluable, resource. You find the right therapist, and then you plug in there, because we don't even know how to help. Yeah. Remember, we're still trying to solve our own issues, and then you can't help someone who's sinking if you're sinking yourself. That's the first law of swimming. You have to be a good swimmer to save someone. And there is hope. Let me tell you something. My son, with all the trouble he gives us, he will tell his friends, "Tell your parents to come and talk to my parents. They will help your parents." Yeah. So they've trained us. They've given us the experience that we have packaged as a tool. And once in a while, the doorbell rings and a strange couple in tears shows up, and we say, "Sit down." Yeah. And we're able to say, "Look, it's going to be okay.
Yep.
It's going to be okay.
It's and no man these are referrals from our own children."
Yep.
Wow. Ladies, what can I say? I don't know. I really could carry on this conversation, but unfortunately we've got this time thing. And so we've got to sort of bring this to a close now. I want to say a huge thank you to both of you for being really open and being very giving. We're talking about topics that makes us all feel quite vulnerable. I think for me, starting this podcast, one of the really challenging things for me was talking about myself. Because as a researcher, as an academic, I'm used to giving data, facts, figures, not me. But I think unless we're prepared to be open, I think unless we're prepared to share of our experiences and allow those stories to be a tool to support and help those who are navigating the same journeys. Because in some ways, you said your first daughter was a guinea pig. But in some ways, each one of us is a guinea pig unless we gather this experience that we have and provide it as a resource so that the parents who come after us are no longer guinea pigs. We've explored so many issues. We've explored the challenges of arriving in the diaspora, settling down, managing the transition for yourself, for your children, learning new things, the uncertainties, how you try to keep their identity. And sometimes, actually, they keep it despite you, not because of you. And also some of the toll that takes. You've been very honest and open about some of that for you as a family. But you ended on the note that it will be well. And I think that's what I'll leave you with. That one of the things I know about diasporans is the resilience. I always say anybody who can leave everything they know, go to a new environment, and give it a good go, I think you already have the tools. It's just about finding the right resource to support you along the way. So thank you so very much for listening today. Thanks to my very excellent discussants for today. I hope that we've given you something to think about. And as we carry on, hopefully we'll be exploring more of these issues in detail, drawing on more resources, so that together, as this village, we will thrive, not just survive. Thank you.